Welcome back to With the First Pick on this edition of The Perfect Fix. We're going to fix the Green Bay Packers. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Rand Carthon. And before we get going, like always, Packers fans, let us know in the comments what you think the biggest need is heading into the offseason. Matt LaFleur got a well-deserved new deal. You guys may feel differently. You can let us know about that. They also have some new coaches on the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk about that. Jeff Hafley obviously took the job in Miami to be their new head coach. He was the DC in Green Bay. And I thought he did a pretty good job. They had some injuries to deal with. But, again, let us know in the comments how you feel. Always love reading the comments. All right, Rand, I mentioned LaFleur's new contract. You work with Mike LaFleur, I believe, in Los Angeles. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, briefly.
But, and we talked about this a month or so ago, is there any world where he should not have gotten a new deal?
No, and that's the part where I just, maybe I'm just different. Maybe I've been in the league too long. I don't understand when these fan bases and these people are just so quick to throw these coaches out because, okay, we hadn't been to the Super Bowl. Well, that's not a Mike LaFleur problem per se. I mean, the last time the Packers went to the Super Bowl was 2010?
Yeah.
Right. And so you run Mike McCarthy out because of it. And then you bring in, LaFleur whenever you did, and he's kept the thing consistent. They have been consistent winners. They've been consistent competitors in that division. And that's what you want. You want to have the opportunity to get in a tournament. Now, you mentioned it, Ryan. They had a lot of injuries and some big injuries at that. So those are all things you can't account for. But to say that you're going to throw Matt LaFleur, there's too many LaFleurs in this world right now, coaching in the league, but you're going to throw him out for who?
Right.
Who do you think you're going to go get that's going to, take this thing to the next level? So don't be so quick to throw these coaches out. Give them a chance. And a guy like him, if he would have been fired or let go, he would have had his pick of jobs, much like John Harbaugh did.
Exactly. And Brian Gutekunst, the GM, also got an extension. He's been the GM since January of 2018. And in that time, to your point, Rand, the team has had double-digit wins in a season 4 times, and they've been to the playoffs 6 times. So there are worse fates than having your head coach and your GM be as successful. And I know you have issues with some of the game management stuff, but every single fan base has those issues. But, hey, that's why you're fans. Fans short for fanatics, Rand. And I think that is stressed most often in football. All right, in recent weeks, we saw defense coordinator Jeff Hafley take the Dolphins head coaching job. But I don't know if this is an upgrade because I know you're a huge Hafley guy. There are worse fates than landing Jonathan Gannon, who was the DC in Philadelphia before he went to Arizona for that job. He was fired as the head coach a few weeks ago. I think that is a great situation for him. They also added Bobby Babich, who was the DC in Buffalo, and they're redoing things in the org chart in Buffalo. So he's now going to be the pass game coordinator. It feels like these are steps. You're going to keep things either like they were with Hafley, or maybe they're going to get better because I think Gannon is well respected as a defensive coordinator around the league.
Yeah, I think things will tweak just a little bit. I think the thing in bringing in Hafley was the structure of the defense, right, and how that marries with what LaFleur likes to do offensively. Look none other than at the San Francisco 49ers. Same offensive concept. They had the same defensive concept. Jeff Hafley was our secondary coach in our first year in San Francisco under Robert Saleh, who was then the defensive coordinator. Think about that coaching staff here for a second. On that coaching staff, and I know we're talking about the Green Bay Packers, but on that specific coaching staff, you had obviously Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator. You had Mike LaFleur, I believe, was the receivers coach. Mike McDaniel was the run game coordinator. You had D'Amico Ryans was just a quality control coach or assistant linebackers coach. Jeff Hafley was the secondary coach. Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator. Bobby Slowick was an offensive assistant at that point. All those guys were there together. And again, it's the mirroring and the matching of the offensive system to the defensive system to make it all make sense.
Yeah, so that's incredible, that coaching tree, because a lot of times we look at when they were called the Washington Redskins, it was Sean McVay, it was Kyle Shanahan, it was Mike McDaniel, and that you see their little young mug shots, and now you see how they've sort of spread out, and their coaching trees are taking shape. One thing to keep in mind as well, The Packers are going to need a new quarterbacks coach because Sean Mannion was hired by the Eagles to be their OC. We'll see how that works out because we know that they've had issues in Philly with their offensive coordinators every other year. All right, Rand, let's take a look under the hood here, as it were, as we always do, leaning your front office experience. I'm going to set the table and what your thoughts on a few things here. The Packers, and you check my work as always, currently 21st in available salary cap space. They're roughly $4.3 million over the cap, so they got some moves to make. I'll list some of the names of free agents, and you tell me who we want to keep and who maybe we have to let go, and maybe some guys that are currently under contract that we may have to think about. Quay Walker, former first-round pick, I believe. Malik Willis, who rediscovered himself under Matt LaFleur, part-time starter, and I thought he did well in the handful of opportunities he had there. Sean Ryan came in. He played a lot this year because of the injuries. Romeo Doubs, one of their big wide receivers. Kingsley Enagbare, edge rusher. Rasheed Walker, the former seventh-round pick out of Penn State, who started at left tackle. Emmanuel Wilson, the running back, part of that group by committee. Bo Melton. Those are some of the names. And then I'll just throw this out here. In 2027, a year from now, these guys will be up, unless they get re-signed, of course. Elshon Jenkins, Christian Watson, Keyshawn Nixon, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, Dontavian Wicks. So you look more than 1 year out, but obviously you want to start with 2026. But this could be a huge turnover type situation 2 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why this team typically likes to hoard draft picks and have as many draft picks as possible to get younger players in the pipeline that allows you to move on from some of these free agents. Now, here's the trick. Green Bay traditionally hadn't been a team that really dipped their toe into the free agency market from a big player splash type of signing. They have been a little bit more willing to do so in recent years under Brian Gutekunst, but this could be a situation where they play the compensatory pick game and allow some of those names that you mentioned. And it's funny.
So just to be clear, that means you're thinking a year ahead, right?
Right. You're thinking a year ahead. You're already $4.3 million over the cap. And just even when I was looking through, it's like who on that list where you could go and you could renegotiate and kick the can down the road a little bit. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, you have Jordan Love, who you know is going to be there. You could convert some of his money because he has a cash total this year of $51 million. And so you may be able to push some of that down the road. Another name I wrote down was Nate Hobbs. He has a cap number of $12.8 million this year with a dead cap hit. If they were to move on from him, have a dead cap hit of $12 million, which, by the way, they have $17.1 million in dead cap space. So they got to cook these books a little bit here to just get back in compliance with the salary cap.
Hey, what happens if you're not in compliance by whatever the date is?
Well, first of all, you have to be, and then if you're not, it's a fine.
Okay,
it's a fine, and I don't know the exact rule off the top of my head because I don't know that it's ever happened.
Right, you just do it.
Yeah, you just do it. You figure it out. And again, we're talking here. This is easy. $4 million over the cap. Like that's one move. You're in compliance. And these salary cap guys are smart. They have Russ Ball, who's been around in this role for 20 plus years, and he knows how to do it. Trust me, they're not in the slightest bit worried as to how they're going to be back in compliance with the salary cap.
Looking ahead quickly, give me two names, and if it's not two, if you don't think it's two, just give me one. But of the guys that are going to be up in 2027, who are you keeping out of these four names? Christian Watson, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, or Tucker Kraft? I think I know the answer. One of those has to be the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, you go Tucker Kraft for sure, and then I think you go Devontae Wyatt and keep fortifying that defensive front. It's one of those deals with Elton Jenkins, super talented player, Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber player, but he just hadn't been healthy.
Right.
And so with the price tag that he could command just due to his talent and his ability, you as the Green Bay Packers have to figure out if it's worth that risk to pay him, north of $25 million, let's call it, a year for a guy that's missed considerable time.
Right. All right, Packers have 8 draft picks in 2026 by my count, but no first rounder because of Micah Parsons, and I think, they would still make that trade knowing Micah got hurt at the end of the year. He'll be back healthy and just as formidable as ever. They don't pick until 52. and they only have 2 picks in the top 100. All right, so let's play the old game here. At pick 52, let's try to find an impact player. And, Packers fans, let me know if you hate it or you agree with it, or give me a position of need that if we don't mention it, that you're sort of lasering in on. But at pick 52, Rand, here are some of the names that I came up with that could potentially be there. Wide receiver, Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. I think he has a chance to be a top 50 pick. We know they like to get their wide receivers in round 2. Our guy, San Diego State cornerback Chris Johnson, who actually weighed 190 at the Senior Bowl. He was closer to 180, I think, on his playing weight. Darrell Jackson, defensive lineman out of Florida State, who we've talked a little bit about, went to the Shrine, graduated to the Senior Bowl, so he had 2 good weeks. And then our guy, center Pat Coogan out of Indiana.
For me, it would come down to Coogan or the San Diego State corner.
You love you some Coogan.
Yeah, and I just think with where they are, again, if the plan is to move on from Jenkins, and Jenkins can play all across the offensive line. Like, let's be clear on that. And then that allows you to be able to move on from Sean Ryan and not have to pay him whatever the cost is expected to be there. But I'm a big fan of Pat Coogan, the player, just the play style. You can poke holes in his game and all of those things. I just know he's a really good football player that actually fits the mold of a Green Bay Packer in the way he goes about his business. And so I like that pick there. You mentioned one of the receivers, and this has nothing to do with the receiver per se, but they have spent a lot of draft capital on these wide receivers, and they struggle to get them all on the field. And again, I understand it from the standpoint of a lot of those guys get hurt. And so you have to have guys in the hopper to have ready to play. But there's only one football, and you can't have the football spread around, 5, 6, 7 receivers and expect to get, production. So I think this is one of those, especially this earlier pick. I think they have bigger needs right now than drafting another receiver this high.
And that's a good point, because Matthew Golden was their first-round pick last year. That was the first time to taking a wide receiver in the first round since Jermichael Finley. Jermichael Finley's a tight end. Who was the wide receiver out of?
Finley was a tight end, and he was a 3rd-round pick, I believe.
Who was the wide receiver out of Florida State they took back in 2002, or whoever that was?
Javon Walker.
Javon Walker, thank you. I think that was the last one they took. Either way, that's a good point. And I talked to Kalen Black, the running back out of Indiana, last week at the Combine, and the Senior Bowl, and I asked about Pat Coogan in particular, and he said he is one of the best leaders he's ever been around. So, and those are things that, as people in the league and front office types, you're interested in, because you want to know how they're going to fit into the locker room. So that's one more checkbox, or one less thing you have to worry about. So, Pat Coogan, that 52 is not too high, you think?
Might be a smidge high, but I mean, at this point, if you like a guy, you take him,
right?
And don't worry about where he ranks on everyone else's draft board. But if I was Green Bay Packers and sitting there at 52, it's my first pick, knowing where we are in terms of our roster. Why not?
Why not? All right, Packers fans, let us know if you agree with that, or if you're super angry at Rand and not at me, because we would be interested in what your thoughts are either way. All right, finally, Bruiser Striker, what does Jim Mora have to say?
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
Man, it's hard not to chuckle at old Jim Mora there. Look, where the point of the fixing these franchises ran, where these are what'd you call them today? First world problems?
First world problems.
Like, these teams are winning consistently year in and year out. There are little quibbles from the fan base about a play call here or a coaching decision there, but overall, you're in pretty good shape. So this team, they do have some roster issues to sort out as guys' contracts expire, and to get under the cap, that $4 million and change that you talked about. But all told, there are a lot of teams that love to be in a situation that the Green Bay Packers find themselves. So let's start here. By the way, Matt LaFleur and his time in Green Bay, 76-40-1. We're talking about firing that guy, which is crazy. But I'll ask you this. He is 3-6 in the playoffs, and that sometimes determines fans' point of view. But let's start here. Rank the teams in the NFC North in terms of how good they're going to be next year, because this is the best division in football. Maybe. We'll talk about the NFC West later, but those two divisions are getting after it.
Hold on. I didn't know. I thought you were going to keep going. So I'm looking at the teams. I just had to write them down. You got Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota. Right now, Minnesota will be 4th.
Yep.
Would be 4th to me. Man,
it's hard.
Yeah, it really
It
is.
gets hard
And
real
I've
quick.
already pissed off the Green Bay Packers fan base at the start of the season when I didn't have them making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I had Detroit and Chicago making the playoffs. So I will stick with my consistency of pissing off the Green Bay Packers fan base, and I will go Detroit 1. I will go Detroit 1, Chicago 2, Green Bay 3, and Minnesota 4. Now, again, before Green Bay jumps in our comments and they start crushing me, on that, listen, 3 teams out of here can make the playoffs. That is really possible. Now, the only issue that you have is that 3 teams out of the NFC West made it last year. And so that division is going to be back. The 49ers will be healthy at some point, which we'll talk about them at some point on the pod. But I think this is a really good competitive division, and I'll forever stand by my statement that I made on one of these other fixed teams. We could potentially see in the NFC next year a 10-win team not make the playoffs.
And I think the bottom line is, just to reiterate in case folks are seeing red, this is a really good football team. They just happen to be in a super tough division. So they could win the division next year. They could finish third and miss the playoffs, winning 10 games. But I think we both agree that this football team should be in line to win no fewer than 9 games.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. All right. So this is a good team, tough division. Stay healthy, get Micah back, figure out a few things in free agency, get into the salary cap, and you're in better shape than 95% of the other teams in the NFL. So let us know, Packers fans, how you feel about all this, what you would fix, what you disagree with. In the meantime, that is it for this Perfect Fix. Thanks for joining us as always. Be sure to subscribe if you like what we do here, and we'll see you guys in the next one.